How many times tonight have you said McKnight was right?
I am so pumped for McKnight Tonight.
See if you can work out why it infuriated me. You know I will get hate for speaking to you. Oh, speaking of Rant.
Welcome to McKnight Tonight. Now, here's Rob McKnight.
Hello, we're back. Good evening, I'm Rob McKnight. Welcome to McKnight Tonight. It is Monday, the 3rd of November, 2025. And while some of us are still celebrating the simple joys of, apparently, Amanda, it's National Sandwich Day. And National Housewife Day.
Oh, fabulous.
Now, Amanda, did I get it all done over the holiday break? Did I make you happy?
About 40%. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Oh, she's learned to be happy with 40%. I am the catch of the century, ladies and gentlemen. All right. There is a lot to discuss tonight, and we will get to that in a moment. We'll still have a laugh despite the heaviness along the way. And don't forget, you can help support the show by watching at youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight. It's been a week, Amanda. I almost forgot the handle. youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight. Now hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. That'll give you notifications, and make a comment to share your take on tonight's stories. I will get to your feedback. And obviously, watching on YouTube, watching lots of videos helps us grow and monetize. And don't be afraid to tell your friends, because there's a lot coming up this week indeed. All right, but on tonight's show, how a 24% primary vote has triggered panic in the Liberal Party, why a third term for Donald Trump is actually being floated from a very reliable source, and what a record number of racehorse deaths mean for an industry racing against time. Yeah, it's the Melbourne Cup tomorrow, and people are basically having their say on the nut to the cup. I'll find out more about that. And I've got to show you this. An hilarious news blooper, all thanks to a beaver. It's a funny one for our back-end cricket. All that and plenty more, including a rant, in this edition of McKnight Tonight. Now let's get into our hot topics. And we begin tonight with a poll so bad, even hardened Liberal veterans are said to be in shock. According to the Australian's Newspoll, the coalition has fallen to an historic low of just 24% primary support. That is the lowest since records began in 1985. Labor leads on 57% to 43% in the two-party preferred, while opposition leader Susan Lee's personal approval has plunged to just 25%. Internal critics say Lee's leadership is drifting, and the party's direction, particularly on energy and migration, has alienated both moderates and conservatives. One Nation has surged to 15%. Now, this is a clear warning sign. The right-wing base is splintering, and that's good news for Labor. Now, party sources tell The Australian morale is at rock bottom. Why wouldn't it be? We've had Susan Lee have gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. She's tried to get the PM on anything and everything because of Kevin Rudd and what Trump said to him. Oh, Kevin Rudd's going to be sacked, and no one supported it. By all accounts, he did a great job. And then there was the Joy Division T-shirt debacle, where the PM walked down in a Joy Division T-shirt, and Susan Lee tried to turn question time into everything about that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Again, when you can't even get your own MPs on side, you've got a problem. And this is the problem. Some MPs within the Libs are quietly floating the idea of bringing back a familiar face, which brings us to the question now, echoing through Liberal circles. Should Tony Abbott return to lead the party? The former Prime Minister recently told the Courier Mail he'd never rule anything out when asked about a comeback, adding fuel to the speculation. Now, look, Abbott still holds strong support among Liberal Conservatives, but others warn his return could cement the party's image as stuck in the past. And let's be honest, Tony Abbott was a fantastic opposition leader. Couldn't get anyone better. He knew how to hit the Labor Party like no other. But when he took the reins and became Prime Minister, he stuffed it up big time. He didn't know how to lead. You know, we had that horrible budget. He and Joe Hockey, smoking cigars, Joe Hockey was, well, basically saying the rest of us had to eat shit, basically. And look, there's no sugarcoating it for the Liberal Party. 24% is catastrophic. If this were a football team, the coach would already be gone and half the board sacked. But bringing back Tony Abbott, it's not a strategy, that's nostalgia. The Liberal Party doesn't need a museum exhibit. It needs a modern message. Until they stop fighting over who leads and start fighting for what they stand for, they will keep hemorrhaging voters to One Nation and the Teals. But look, speaking of political comebacks, over in the US, Donald Trump's former strategist, Steve Bannon, and I don't know if the word former should be used there because he is still involved, well, not publicly, but he is still pulling a lot of strings. But now he's claiming Trump will find a way to serve a third term. Now, I've talked about this. The US Constitution literally forbids that. But Bannon is talking like it absolutely is going to happen. Have a look at this interview he did with The Economist.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through, Zanny, and define all those terms.
But you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it.
If the American people, with the mechanisms we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
would the American people be going against the spirit of the Constitution, ma'am?
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all. Trump
That's what it sounds like.
It's not. Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
no.
I guess that's why it seems to me some kind of tension there.
The only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people, okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started.
It's interesting, isn't it? I'm just writing this down. The only way Trump wins in 2028 is the will of the American people. So that sounds to me that he is saying, we found our get out of jail free card to let Trump run for 2028, his third term, which all scholars agree is illegal as per the American Constitution. But Bannon, who should never be underestimated, seems to have found a loophole, or a loophole they're going to use when they set the definition. They're deciding they set the definition on what will happen. And he has said, though, there will be an election. So Donald Trump, by what Bannon seems to be saying, could still run for a third term, but it will still come down to the will of the people. All well and good, but we know that in 2020, Donald Trump did not accept the results of the election, even though they were fair. Please don't come at me about that it was a stolen election. It wasn't. And Fox News paid a lot of money because they claimed with the Semitic voting machines, they were claiming that they were rigged. What was it? It was almost $1 billion. It was $780 million or something that Fox News lost to Semitic over that claim. So let's just be clear. The 2020 election wasn't stolen. Now, in fairness to Trump, he won it back in 2024. He is the president. He gets to go on. He gets to do his thing. So it seems to me like Bannon is saying that there will be an election, so Trump could theoretically lose that election and someone else could become president of the United States. But I get scared when I hear that Trump is a vehicle of divine prominence. You know, someone asked me in the comments section of one of my videos, how dare you call Trump a liar? What has he ever lied about? I mean, come on, whether you support him or not, you've got to agree he's a liar. Everything can be fact-checked, usually in real time, about what he says. Can he do some good because he can cut through the crap? Yeah, he can. But he is a liar. And he's about the art of the deal. And when I said he's a liar, and when I have said he's a liar, I do say he stands by his word when he does a deal. He did that with Malcolm Turnbull about us sending illegal asylum seekers over to the US in a deal swap. Trump didn't want them, but he took them because the deal had been signed. So he's a very complicated man. But this idea that he's a divine prominence, I find that weird. And obviously, when they talk about the things they need to do, it's Project 2025. All right? Don't think for a moment Project 2025 wasn't a real thing. Despite the claims that Trump had nothing to do with it, Project 2025 is real and it's happening. Just watch the news and you will see that that's true.
The great irony, Robert, is that I'm accused of being a bully in the workplace and I've never witnessed bullying like it.
Do you think you owe anyone an apology, Craig?
Someone wrote to me from the ABC, texted me and said, Mac, I can't believe this. They're trying to do a Don Burke on you. That was the quote.
We were blindsided. They didn't ever approach us or Craig directly. No one did.
You talked about defamation against the media and you've mentioned her, Christy Whelan-Brown. Why'd you drop that?
Told lies and fucked my reputation. And what's happened to me, Robert? I don't have to spell it out, do I?
Yeah, on Wednesday, I'll have an exclusive interview with Craig McLachlan and his partner, Vanessa Scammell. Now, they'll talk about everything that's gone down over the past decade. I recorded it last week, yes, while I was meant to be having a week off. And look, it was meant to be a simple 5 to 10 minute chat talking about his six-string show. But it turned into a conversation that went for almost an hour. And rather than cut it down, I'm going to play the whole thing. That way I can't be accused of protecting them, making them look bad in an edit, making me look good in an edit. If you see the whole thing, you can make up your own mind. But here's the thing. I've been told by friends and colleagues not to run the interview at all. In fact, I've been criticised by people for daring to platform McLachlan. This is despite the fact he was found not guilty. Now, I can hear some people saying, what about the comments from the magistrate? Well, we cover that. And since I uploaded that promo, do you know how many people have attacked me from the public? None. I'm sure it'll come. But that's despite the video having thousands of views. So thousands of views have been seen on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and the like. And I haven't had anyone calling me a dog or anything like that. And it made me realize something. The people working in the media industry, I reckon they're out of touch with Australian values. Most of them are left-leaning with a woke agenda who believe they should be the ones who decide who can and can't be platformed. I think it's dangerous, and it's not something I'll succumb to. We live in a free society, where even those found guilty of crimes have the right to tell their story. But those on the left only believe in the freedom of speech if it's their speech being protected. And these media elites, and that's what I'm going to call them, media elites, they wonder why people are turning their backs on the mainstream media. They wonder why Joe Rogan and people who do podcasts, videocasts like this, who stream their shows and stream their thoughts and opinions, are really starting to take off. Podcasts like this are now one of the biggest content platforms on YouTube. So beating other forms of content on YouTube. This is the fastest growing element of YouTube. People like me talking to you and having a conversation and a back and forth. That's why I love your comments in the feedback section. Now, look, I will have more to say about this tomorrow on Media McKnight. In the meantime, here's an extended preview of Craig talking about being forced out of the stage production, Cluedo. You know I will get hate for speaking to you, and that will happen. What do you make of the ongoing campaigns against you? Because, of course, just recently you were forced to withdraw from the Cluedo stage show following a backlash. You're not being left alone, are you?
No. The great irony, Robert, is that I'm accused of being a bully in the workplace, and I've never witnessed bullying like it. Not just toward me and Vanessa, but to associates, friends, someone like you who invites us on. It's pretty extraordinary, isn't it, that someone who's acquitted 100% not guilty in a criminal matter can have their hopes of a rehabilitation. Let's remember that a magistrate presiding over a case where a person is found not guilty, innocent, is actually not supposed to offer up personal commentary. This is my personal opinion. This has nothing to do with the case, but I'm going to say this. These are brave and honest women, and if things were different, he might have gone down. Well, the bottom line is this. Prosecution still has to prove their case, and they couldn't, and for good reason, because people's stories didn't add up, didn't match up, eyewitness accounts didn't match. How can half a dozen people say, I saw this thing, and yet every story varies so wildly? That magistrate will have her day because she behaved unprofessionally and deliberately set about making sure I couldn't rehabilitate my happy, productive life.
But don't you find it interesting too, Robert, that professional sports people can go back to work? So many professions can go back to work.
Accused of far worse than tickling someone's foot.
Yes.
At the Rocky Horror Show.
And it just shows you that the world we live in, the judiciary system comes second place to social media activism, really.
Well, Craig mentioned the magistrate who was Belinda Wallington. As you said, she found you not guilty, but she did throw you under the bus when she said, and I've got a quote here, the fault element in existence in 2014 was rightly criticised for rewarding the sex offender for their self-absorption. She's basically saying if today's laws had been applied, the result could have been different. That's something your critics have been using against you. Do you think it's fair that you were found not guilty, but there's still a dark cloud hanging above you because of those comments?
It is. It was judicial activism. That's as clear as day. It was judicial activism. She couldn't convict him, so she decided, I'm just going to make some commentary. Now, I think the thing that people, what is most notable these days is it the cherry picking of quotes. So
yeah, I agree.
They'll go to those ones because it serves them. Great. When she said if the laws were different, it would be possible he may have been found guilty. Now, when you actually read the rulings properly, you will actually discover that when she said that in the actual courtroom, it referred to 2 or 3, I can't remember, 2 or 3 of the 13 charges.
Not the way it's reported, though.
No, and it wasn't a blanket statement like people are using it for. So there are just but they don't go to the rulings where you'll say, oh, lack of credibility, prone to exaggeration, false memories, all of that are just ignored. And it just, the trial that media and social media and that various members of the music theatre community have chosen to hold on to are pretty outrageous.
And look, you can see that interview tomorrow in a special edition of McKnight Tonight. And the way it will work is I'm playing the whole thing, but we will be taking breaks so I can start going through your feedback. Rather than waiting for all the feedback at the end, we will come in live and we will take your feedback to see how you and others are reacting to the interview. It's going to be something. It's the first time he's really been able to talk. And I know he's done other feature interviews. I think we really got something here. I'll be interested in your thoughts tomorrow.
McKnight Tonight. McKnight Tonight. McKnight Tonight. I'm going to have a drink. Tonight. Here goes McKnight Tonight.
And yes, I know I said you can judge for yourself tomorrow. I meant Wednesday, of course, when we run the whole interview. You know what? I can feel a rant coming on. Got the taste for it. Just can't wait for it. I can feel a Rob's rant coming on. I make myself laugh anyway. All right, you know that feeling when you slide into the back of a cab and you immediately start wondering if you've just made a mistake? Well, that's exactly what Sydney Morning Herald writer Sue Williams describes, and honestly, it's hard not to relate. Now, in this opinion piece in the Sydney Morning Herald, she talks about being ripped off, ignored and overcharged by drivers who take the long way, refuse card payments or hit you with a call-out fee that doesn't exist. And after years of giving them the benefit of the doubt, she's finally said what so many Aussies have been thinking, and I quote, "Sorry, taxi drivers, but you've ripped me off too many times. I'm done." And she's right. The patience people had for the taxi industry, it has run out. We all remember the days before rideshare apps when taxis were the only option and you just had to cop whatever happened. You know, you would ring them up and they'd say on their way, and it would be 30 minutes, 40 minutes when cabs that were closer weren't given the call, but someone who answered first, who was 40 minutes away, would drive to you. It was a nightmare. And you'd be out, not that I really ever did this, but on the occasion I'd go to an event in the city and you'd be trying to get a cab and they'd say, "Where are you going to?" Such and such. Nah. You know, it happened to me as recently as a couple of years ago. I was at the Channel 7 Christmas party and finished up. This was in Sydney. And basically I was with a mate, Matthew, and walked out and there was a cab there and we just went, "Whoa, good luck." Opened the door, got in the cab and he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, and it was not far away. Admittedly, it was like a 5 to 10 minute trip. And he went, nah. I said, "What do you mean, nah?" He said, "No, I'm not taking you. I'm just about to finish. I can't take you." I said, "Well, hang on, mate." I said, "Your light was on. You are obviously looking for work. I've jumped in the cab. I'm a paying passenger." He said, I meant to have the doors locked." Hello. And I said, "Well, that's bad news for you because you now have to take me where I want to go." And he's like, No, I don't. I'll call the cops." I said, "Let's call the cops. Let's do it because you are in the wrong and you are lying. I am a paid passenger and there are laws that you have to take me to where I want to go. You cannot refuse a fare." Anyway, he pulled over, refused to go. And my mate, God love you, is there go, "I don't know what to do." And I just went, "I'm not leaving this cab, mate." And he goes, "Well, I'm calling the cops." I said, "Call them. Absolutely call them. I'll wait." I said, "I'll call them." And he's humming and hawing and trying to force me out. I said, "Mate," and he's trying all this BS about how he doesn't have to take me. I said, "Mate, there are laws." I said, "I'm going to take a picture of your number and I'm going to report you. And if I can't find your number, I'm going to take your license plates. But I'm not getting out of this car until we have reached my destination." And it really got to the point that he could see I wasn't going anywhere. So he did drive us. And along the way, I thought, okay. And he was tense. I was sort of tense, but I was proving a point. And I said to him, mate, I understand what you tried to do, but it's the law. But you're taking me where I want to go. No hard feelings, all right? We're all good. Anyway, all right, mate. All right, mate. Anyway, I gave him a tip. Now, you might be surprised by that, but I just thought he's tried to play the game. It's been a lesson for him. I know he'll do it again, but I thought just give him a little tip. So I did that. I tried to end. But the taxi industry have pulled shit like that for years. And now we've got alternatives. So every time a driver forgets to turn on the meter or suddenly claims the FPOS machine is broken, another loyal customer walks away to those services. And I don't have sympathy. I've heard talkback go on about the poor taxi industry. We paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for our plates. Now Uber's doing it for free. True, and I have sympathy for that. People did invest. Taxi license plates were worth a fortune for good reason, because they helped you make a fortune. But that's because you treated us like crap. So I am all for the Ubers, the Diddies, the whatever. Because here's the truth. Case of beer, because I didn't turn my computer off. Taxis should have owned this market. We should have been loyal. But what happened? The moment we had an alternative, we didn't show loyalty to the taxi industry because they had never shown loyalty to us. They used and abused their customers. And so as soon as something else came, we went there. The taxi industry blew it. Instead of evolving, they got defensive. Instead of customer service, they gave us attitude. Now they're wondering why we choose all those other rideshare apps. Sue's story isn't just her story, it's everyone's. And until the taxi industry realizes the world has changed and starts treating passengers like customers, not targets, they'll keep driving themselves into irrelevance. All right, plenty ahead on this edition of McKnight Tonight. Nup to the cup, they say. The Melbourne Cup is tomorrow. And should it be banned? Well, there's certainly a growing resistance to the cup. I'm going to find out more and see whether their claims are valid and whether there's any chance it'll actually happen. And then we'll have a great back-end quickie involving a beaver. You can probably guess. Anyway, all that and more coming up on this edition of McKnight Tonight, including your feedback. But first, let's head out into the random live shot of the day.
It's the random live shot of the day. Where are you going today? You'll never know where you'll end up with the random live shot of the day.
Time to take a breath and look at something truly spectacular. Tonight's random live shot of the day comes from Hawaii's Kilauea volcano, where a 24/7 live stream is giving the world a front row seat to one of nature's most dynamic and dramatic light shows. You're looking at the aftermath of what volcanologists call episode 35 of the ongoing Halemahu. Sorry, I'm going to say that again. Halemahu. I was trying to practice that all day. Halemahu eruption. It ended abruptly in the early hours of October 18 after 7.5 hours of continuous lava fountaining that reached heights of up to 1,500 feet. That's about the height of Sydney Tower. Since then, the vent areas and lava flows have been slowly cooling, though you can still see that eerie orange glow, the telltale sign of molten rock just beneath the crust. Look at that. You can see it just bursting there. Scientists from the US Geological Survey say the volcano summit is now re-inflating, meaning another eruption episode is likely within the next couple of weeks. And it certainly is bubbling away there, isn't it? There it comes. In the meantime, tremors continue every few minutes, part of the vent's natural gas pistoning cycle, and plumes of sulfur dioxide are still rising from the crater at background levels. So while Hawaii's residents keep a cautious eye on the skies, the rest of us, well, we get to sit back and marvel at one of Earth's most extraordinary live feeds, and that is extraordinary. So it's amazing to watch. All right, we are back live, and we are getting the feedback from you guys, so let's bring it in, Jasmine. Travis says, ooh, fancy new opener. Thank you for noticing, Travis. I really am glad you noticed that. Over the page we go. Dylan says, Rob, going casual tonight, or is it warm in Queensland? Yeah, I have gone casual, but it is warm in Queensland, been a very hot day. So, yeah, it has been warm here. But Matthew says he's going like that because there's no aircon in the shed. Actually, Matthew, we do have aircon in the shed. And in fact, Amanda wraps up. Every time she comes into the garage, she says, ooh, it's a bit cold in here. Thank you, Amanda. I like it cool. Just
But
like
the
me.
electricity bill.
Yeah, Amanda, rather than having the electricity bill, would rather me sweating all over the
It's
desk.
good for you. It's like a sauna. Sweat it out.
All right, Dylan says, meanwhile, I have the heater on tonight. Goodness me, it must be cold in Adelaide, I think. On Your Own Crazy says, never order a cab taxi in a party district of inner city Brisbane. They won't come. So, yeah, I believe that. Over the page we go. Jason says, unfortunately, Uber can be just as bad. So true, so true. And you'll notice a lot of Uber drivers are cancelling trips. They are getting penalised for that. But you know how if we cancel a trip, sometimes we have to pay? I think Uber drivers should have to pay if they cancel. I once had an Uber driver accepted the fare, but then didn't want the fare and started driving in the opposite direction. And he was still connected, and I called him and said, you're going the wrong way, mate. No, not taking the fare. You'll have to cancel it. And I said to him, oh, no. I'm not cancelling it. I will sit here all night and not go to my event rather than let you get away with this crap. If you want to cancel this ride, you have to cancel. No, mate, you've got to cancel it. No, I said. I was when I was working for 7 in Sydney, I was in my hotel room. I just said, I got nowhere to be. I can give up this thing. But I tell you what, mate, you are not pulling this. If you want to have your Uber turned off all night, you go for it. You do your thing. He swore black and... Why are you shaking your head at me? He swore black and blue, but he cancelled it. And that means he gets the punishment. Jeanette says, I was in Melbourne with my heart friend who had oxygen with her. A taxi refused to take us, even so the taxis were ordered by the hospital. Yes, annoying. We've got to fight back. Beck says, Rob, is the Queensland maroon male Karen? No, I'm not a Karen. I stand up for what's right, Beck. I do it for you, and I do it for you, and I do it for everyone. I am the people's champion. You'll be right with McKnight. That's my Senate campaign at the next election, running for the Senate. Justine says, can't wait for the interview. Yeah, it's a good one, Justine. I think it really is. So, yes, Wednesday night, that will be here, 9 o'clock. And I'll be interested in your feedback and everyone else's. Own Your Crazy says, fun fact, Craig McLaughlin, Check 1 2, had a top 30 hit with the single called Amanda. Oh, yes, it comes up. Don't you worry, it comes up. Nicole says... cannot wait to see the interview on Wednesday. Fantastic. Over the page we go. And Travis says, dear Lord, Abbott coming back. Trump for a third term. Can I pull the exit lever now from planet Earth? Very good. Dylan says, yes, in South Australia, we have a state election next year, and the latest polling has the Liberal Party on 15%. The Libs are in trouble everywhere, except up here in Queensland, where they provided a good alternative to the Labor government we had. But the Liberals are not working out what the public wants. David Crisafullia here. Basically, I think one on adult crime for adult time, for youth crime. I think other states need to work out what their messaging is. Own Your Crazy says, One Nation won 11 seats in Queensland's parliament one election and lost them all the next. You only need 10 for party status in the parliament. And let's be honest, I think One Nation is rising and falling depending on how the Libs and the Nats are doing, because that's how One Nation picks up seats. They're all right skewing, and when the Liberal Party is not offering a something that the voters want, they are gravitating towards the towards One Nation rather than going towards Labor. Thank you for all your feedback. We'll have more of it very, very shortly, and I will fit in a back end quickie just before we wrap this up. But now let's get into our feature interview.
We've invited you here. You don't need to apologise for your story or for what you're saying. I heard the yapping. There was a lot I didn't understand about myself until I had that diagnosis. Don't get the shitties with me. Oh, Guy, no, that's Guy.
Funny insightful interviews from a washed-up producer with nothing to lose. McKnight Tonight, McKnight Tonight. Here comes McKnight Tonight.
Well, tomorrow is the big one. It's Melbourne Cup Day, and it's often billed as the race that stops the nation. But for many Aussies, it raises complicated and uncomfortable questions. Helly Erhardsen is the General Manager of the Coalition for the Protection of Racehorses, and she argues the industry is facing an animal welfare reckoning. Helly, thanks for joining us on McKnight Tonight.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Look, let's start with the big question. Are you opposed to all horse racing, or is there a qualification, or is it without qualification?
It will take a little while to explain, but yes, we are opposed to all horse racing. We don't believe there's an ethical way that that this can be done if you are to truly put welfare over profit.
Okay, I don't have a horse in this race. No pun intended. I don't overly follow the Melbourne Cup, but I'm not against the Melbourne Cup. But you recently released data showing at least 174 racehorses died in racing and training over the past 12 months in Australia. What do you say to those in the industry who argue these are unfortunate but rare accidents?
I would say these are absolutely not accidents. They are a direct result of pushing the horses too far, pushing them too fast, and pushing them way too young. It's proven from lots of different research that the majority of these catastrophic injuries happen because of the stress to the bones over time for these horses. They're started way too young before before their bodies has matured. The way they're being started is in a rush, and the way they're being exercised is way beyond what they should be doing at that age that they're doing it. I think it is well and truly scientifically proven that these are not accidents. We're seeing horses also on the track that simply collapse and die from a heart attack. And we're seeing incidents of internal bleeding that's proven to be exercise induced. And then, of course, the many catastrophic injuries such as front limb fractures. We're seeing where the bone simply breaks in half and the horse's leg will just flap along. And the poor horse is still trying to keep up with the herd. These horses are being put down. Racing will put up a nice green screen so the race goes.
I mean, it's always been an ongoing joke. The screen's out, and you know the bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
But here's something that I think. Can we agree that most of the people who are in this game love their horses because they argue that racing can be conducted humanely and safely, for example, with tighter regulation, better welfare protocols, improved training, retirement plans. Would you agree with that? Would that satisfy you if it was regulated more?
Well, first of all, that would take a lot of regulation, and we are participating as much as we can with submissions every time we get the chance to improve welfare, because indeed there is a lot that could be done to make this safer and make it less stressful and less cruel to the horses. Unfortunately, this is going very, very slowly, and the improvements that has been done is simply not enough. We're not really seeing that the industry is willing to do this. It costs money. Good welfare costs money. And our argument is if it's that an industry shouldn't be allowed to to operate if it can't afford to look after its most important participants, which would be the horses.
Mm. Hey, where does the RSPCA stand on horse racing? What's its stance?
I think, yeah, well, I can't speak on behalf of the RSPCA, but you can look at their information pages where they stand on horse racing. And it's very clear that it needs serious reform in order to be done just remotely less cruel. We have, what was it, earlier this year, we had a very important court case won in Tasmania. RSPCA Tasmania won a case of cruelty where it was proven that whipping racehorses with even the padded whip that racing claims doesn't hurt horses, that it does actually cause unnecessary and unjustifiable pain and suffering to the horse. So in some ways, you can say that every single day of the year, racing is actually committing acts of cruelty. If it wasn't for the fact that that racing has been allowed to regulate itself, both the integrity and animal welfare, which we think is a serious case of conflict of interest, which really shouldn't be happening. If we had
you're facing an uphill battle, aren't you? I mean, I think back to Mike Baird in New South Wales, the Premier of New South Wales at the time. He tried to shut down greyhound racing, did it for a short period of time, but it cost him politically. He will say that it wasn't because of the greyhound situation, but that essentially ended his political career. It's not realistic to believe politicians are going to stick their necks out for this cause, is it?
I think eventually they will realize that it is not in the interest of Australians to keep funding an industry that is being proven time and time again that it's cruel to the animals. And that's not just horse racing, that's greyhound racing as well. And we are seeing moves on it. And indeed, we have several MPs who are supporting our Not to the Cup campaign and is working really hard at parliaments across the country to speak up for the horses.
Yeah, I didn't mean all politicians. You'd obviously get Greens and possibly some Teals, but the two big parties, it's always tough. I started to think that people were saying up to the Cup and, just getting a bit over it for whatever reason. I'm a TV guy, though, and TV ratings would suggest people really still do like the sport. The 2024 Melbourne Cup race, well, it attracted a national average audience of approximately 1.91 million viewers. That was an 11.3 increase compared to the previous year. So what are we going for here? Are we trying to get average Australians on board? How do you do that if they're still enjoying this sport?
Well, look, I think you will find that most people who are watching this is because they're gambling on the races. So it is so closely tied to gambling. And that is a whole issue in itself, the problems that gambling is putting on the Australian public. And I dare to say, look, the money that gambling on horse racing might generate for governments, you'd have to look at how much money they're putting back into the horse racing industry and then see if there's even a surplus at the end. We're not allowed to see those numbers, so I can't say what they would show, but it would be very interesting. And I think that is both the gambling, but also the tradition. It's a tradition that people are watching the Melbourne Cup. Now we've been out.
Well, it's a public holiday in Victoria.
Yeah.
How do you fight that?
Yeah, I was just about to say we've been protesting here for the last couple of days in Melbourne, and even from the race goers that are going into the races will tell us, "Oh, look, we're against horse racing. We don't go in there for the horses. We go in there because we want to look pretty and we want to party." And that is why we have started a campaign that's called Not to the Cup, that is running across the entire country, where we are offering an alternative to people a meaningful way to spend the Cup day without hurting any animals. So proving that we can still have a wonderful good time. We can dress up, put our silly hats on and get drunk if that's what you want. But it doesn't have to involve the cruelty of horse racing. And we are getting bigger and bigger support every single year for this campaign, and people are loving it. And the community are getting together to maybe raise funds for their local animal charities and all sorts of different great causes. So we're definitely seeing that it is possible to celebrate this day and make it into a day where we even celebrate animals instead of exploiting them.
Yeah, look, I think there's definitely been an uptick in people turning their backs on the Melbourne Cup and the Nut to the Cup campaign. But obviously, I don't think the Melbourne Cup is going anywhere soon. But Helly Earhardson, thank you so much for joining us on McKnight Tonight. It's a big campaign you've got going. Thanks for telling us about it.
It is, and we'll stick to it. Thank you.
All right, before I get to your feedback, I reckon we can do it, Amanda. What do you think?
Oh.
Let's have a back-end quickie. And this one is a news fail. And I love news fails because there are so many people that go into making sure that the news goes to air correctly and is all very serious. Sometimes you say the wrong thing and it all falls apart. Like the mention of this beaver.
It seems the Christmas shopping bug is hitting a lot of people and some animals.
That's right. Check this out. It's a very curious beaver. A Maryland Sheriff's Office says they got a call from a local store saying the beaver was wreaking havoc in the Christmas section. To see that, well, the Sheriff's Office later tweeted that the beaver was rescued and after long pet sessions, apparently, was released back into the wild.
A lot of beavers in the news lately. Didn't you have a beaver in the news yesterday or the day before? He's going to the aquarium, I think.
Oh, yes.
Jinx.
Apparently they're the most popular creatures right now, this time of year. Beaver breeding.
Those little guys are cute and cuddly looking. The beavers I've seen are bigger.
And not.
Yeah, and they don't look as friendly. So I don't know. Maybe I've seen my beavers in the wrong place. Moving on.
Yeah, it's weather time. Let's yeah, this afternoon, not too bad. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Let's go to the maps. There we go.
I love that. Just you know, doing a beaver story and just making that accidental double entendre. That's hilarious. All right, let's take a look at some of the feedback coming through to McKnight Tonight. And we've got this one. I thought I'd hit the button, but I didn't. Beck says, nut to the cup. I don't care what my late father said. Fair enough, Beck. Matthew says, horse racing is nothing but for the gambling industry. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Over the page we go. Own Your Crazy says, I don't have a horse in the cup tomorrow either, despite being hung like one. Oh, please. As Carlotta said to me on an episode of Booty and the Beast, all talk, no stalk. Nicole says, still cannot understand why Victoria has to have a public holiday for one horse race. Yeah, I never got that either, but maybe you have to be from Melbourne and Victoria to understand that. It always struck me as odd that there was literally a public holiday for the Melbourne Cup. Dylan says, where is the year gone? Didn't realise it was the Melbourne Cup tomorrow. Yeah, it really has gone fast, hasn't it? Mikey Spikey 79 says animals used in sport in the pursuit of profiteering from it should be respected and given utmost care foremost. If 174 footballers died playing or training in 12 months, we would be asking questions. Look, I think that's a really fair point. And the point I did say to Helly was that I do believe that a lot of the trainers and the owners, they love their horses. I do believe that. But that's not to say people don't push them too far at times. But I think that's a very fair comment. Mum's on the Facebook tonight. The government will not get rid of the horse racing industry. Brings in too much money. They've gotten rid of a lot of the greyhound racing. Rob, number 13 in the Cup tomorrow. I'm sure Mum goes off names. So what is number 13 in the Cup tomorrow? Someone better quickly send me a text because I am wrapping up. Own Your Crazy says, I have never bet on a race. I don't understand how it works. I can never lose money not betting. Yeah, but you can't make money either. You know, I understand where you're coming from, but you can't make money. Does anyone tell me what number 13? No. Maybe that'll have to be one we all have to look at ourselves. Hey, that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of McKnight Tonight. Media McKnight is here at 9 o'clock tomorrow. And seriously, I was starting to write it today or tonight, and there's a lot in it. I've missed a week. I've got a lot to say, and I will be talking more about Craig McLachlan. And of course, on Wednesday, special edition of McKnight Tonight, as I bring you that Craig McLachlan interview. I think it's extraordinary. I'll be very interested to see what you guys think. But I'll have that for you Wednesday night, and then we're back to normal on Thursday. McKnight Tonight is back. Thank you for your company. You're all turning up and being here and taking part. I love it. Love you guys so much. All right, we will see you tomorrow for Media McKnight. Until then, it's good night from McKnight. Oh, lights. There, I've remembered.
It's good night from McKnight Tonight.